Hey there friends, Dave Paulides, Can-Am Missing Project, copyrighted edition for our video channel. And we're on Huck TV right now, and it's a pretty glorious day on the TV channel. Huck's in a good mood. She says, rub my ears, Dad, rub my belly. Hey, shake. Can we shake? Come on, shake. That's a good girl. Oh yes, that's a good girl. Okay, so Huck's in a good mood, which is a good thing all the way around. But I'm in even a better mood because it is a glorious day here. It's a Memorial Day. It's a magnificent day. And why do I say that? Because I just posted our movie trailer for our third documentary. Friends, all the stories I'm going to tell over the following months at conferences and things about this documentary. And I'm going to give you a little background on it right now. I'm going to walk you through what we had to go through so you can really appreciate this when it does come out. So this is our third one, Missing 411, Missing 411 The Hunted. Those are the first two. And in fact, if you look under the comments of this video, you're going to see the links, the newly established links that you can watch those movies for free. So, this movie, Missing 411, The UFO Connection. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, that's really a good question. Huck changed positions on me. That dog's all over the place, all over the place. So, the UFO Connection. My gosh, Dave, that's a big step. Are you saying UFOs are doing this? Are you saying aliens are doing this? I can just imagine all the talk out there. It's going to be great. So, I want you to understand how documentaries are really done. And a group of people that are involved in it sit around and we develop a storyline. And it's usually the principals that are on the team. I may have a player that's part of the distribution of the movie. And we graph it out by weeks. Okay, we're going to be doing this week, this that week, and then we're going to take a week off and kind of recharge. Then we're going to get on a flight and we'll meet here, we'll meet there. And then we map it out for 6, 8, 12, 16 weeks. And usually by 3 or 4 months, 5 months, you're almost done. Now, huge difference between a fiction and non-fiction documentary or movie. When you map out a fictional movie, you lay it out and you stick to it. And you have a schedule and you stick to it. One thing I learned in my first movie is with the documentary, you can't stick to anything. You got to be really, really flexible. And in this movie, flexible was the $1 million word. So we started this movie 3 years ago, just so you know, about 2019. So we do sit around and we do map it, the movie. And we map it all the way out at the beginning with what we think we want to accomplish. But as you go out and you interview people and you talk to law enforcement, talk to reporters, talk to witnesses, my gosh, things change so drastically. I mean, it's not even close sometimes to reality. I've seen reports from every department you can think of, National Park Service, U.S. Forest Service, Sheriff's Department, that says, this is the way this person disappeared, and you get there, it's nothing like that. Nothing like that. And maybe some things point to criminal misconduct, and that'll pull us all the way off, and we won't even be involved. Other times it points to maybe UFOs. And then all of a sudden, we're on that track. And we have to have a pretty open mind about things and demand some pretty hard proof if we're going to go forward with it. And I'm somebody who demands pretty hard proof, multiple witnesses, etc. So a lot of times when these stories get convoluted and they're not exactly what we were told, we'll have a midweek meeting. And that's the crew that's on the road. We'll sit around on a phone sometimes with somebody, say from the distribution group, and explain what we're up to and where we're going and what we're thinking. And all of a sudden, you know, we might have been getting on a plane Saturday and now we're getting on a plane Thursday and we're going someplace else entirely different based on what we were told by a witness, told by maybe sheriffs from a county or whatever. Now, we started to film this movie, and we started to film this when Ben was still alive. And I got to tell you that Ben was 100% behind what we were doing. And he told me something, I swear, in this holy world, this is true. He said, "Dad, don't trust everyone that's around you." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Dad, they don't have your best interests at heart." I didn't really know what he meant. And he didn't really explain himself too much, but there's a lot of things. Hey, Huck, stay out of there. I'm telling you, this dog knows when I'm busy. And she goes around and, oh, it's time to get into everything I can that he knows I'm not supposed to. That's what's that, the life of a dog, right? So it was kind of something that when he said that, I sort of trusted everybody that was around me, and until somebody proves otherwise, I just do. And what I learned by all of this is that not to trust everybody. It was a very, very hard lesson for me. And I'm not going to go into details about things because I believe in trying to make amends and forgiveness and etc. But I had some brutal, brutal things happen to this production. Namely, the hardest one was when Ben took his life. It was right in the middle of it. And it just shut everything down. I couldn't function for quite a while. And knowing that he is my confidant, I had questions about technical issues, about production, I'd always go to him. And I could trust him 1,000%. He didn't want to be involved in this production. And not for any reason about the topic, but because he was so far into his religious studies that he didn't want to get disrupted. And I understood that, but he says, "Hey, Dad, I'm a resource for you." And that was a rough one. And then we had international travel on this. And there's a lot of cumbersome issues surrounding that. Now, before Ben took his life, he was saying how there was going to be this crisis in society and that society was crumbling. I don't know if he was just talking to talk or whether he really thought something was going on, but I gotta say he was right. He was living in Culver City at the time, and I can tell you that Culver City and West Los Angeles has crumbled beyond anything I can ever imagine seeing. And as it started to crumble and COVID started to take over and restrictions started to take place, the production of this started to crumble again. So honestly, folks, during the time that we were producing this, there were probably 50 times where I just said, "Oh, let's just chuck this, put it in the shelf. I'm not interested anymore." And Angie and I would talk about it all the time. It's like the forces of the world were against this movie coming out. And I don't say that lightly. I mean it seriously. So on international travel, we had country issues, weather, wildlife, safety concerns for the crew. I mean, we have to be concerned about that all the time. We're in grizzly bear territory where we were at. And then we wanted to film at one point in a national park. So about 3 months beforehand, I file with Yosemite National Park to go in there. Don't hear nothing for 6 weeks, 2 months. I send it overnight. Finally, after 2 months, I call them. They said, oh, we never got it. I said, but it shows it's tracked and you guys signed for it. I did that specifically for this reason. They said, oh, that must have went to our mail room and we never got it forwarded from there. Okay. So we need you to file all the paperwork again and send another check. And I did. 2 months later, they said, no, you're not going to get your film permit. No reason. No, you're not getting it. Capricious and arbitrary. Well, this is back when they were requiring all of these. As it turned out, Yosemite was never needed because the film kept taking these turns towards UFOs. We weren't looking for it, folks. We weren't looking for it. A lot of times I'll sit down with somebody and during the interview process, one of the last questions I'll ask, is there something during the interview that I should have asked you? Or is there some story that I should have known about going into this and maybe you could enlighten me? That question opens so many doors of importance. And it did. And I was very fortunate. I have been very fortunate to get inside the room with some of the top people in the UFO field. And I say that gingerly because the UFO field is very, fractured. A lot of really strong beliefs, a lot of people that don't like each other. It's a lot like the Bigfoot world. It's sometimes even worse. But a lot of people in this world I've gotten very lucky with because we had a good relationship. And they always seem to go out of their way to help me. And that, I'm humbled for everybody that helped me in this film. So, as we got into this, and I asked that story, one person said, hey Dave, you know that there's animals that have been taken too by UFOs. I said, really? I don't know much about that. That was almost 3 years ago exactly. And boy, did that open my eyes. And I thought, well, yeah, people say that all the time. No, it wasn't just people saying it. There was a lot of evidence of it. Multiple witnesses. And then thorough investigations done. So there was no investigation per se I had to do on my end. I just had to get the witnesses together and have their story told. And it blew my mind. And then things kept getting pointed into specific areas of the United States and British Columbia. And these certain areas had things about them that were stunning. Numbers of people that disappeared. What they were doing when they disappeared. What they told relatives before they disappeared. Their heritage. What the sheriff's office, what the sheriff of the county thought happened and explained what happened and how they were stymied. And I got these people on film. And after time went on, and I got back after getting these stories, I started to look for historical support for what these people had all said and what the witnesses and the evidence was presenting. And at times, it almost seemed as though I was getting spoon-fed this pretty easy. So there were times when the movie was almost like given to me and said, Dave, go with this. And at other times, it was like every objection in the world was thrown at me to ensure that this never happened. So I've done 3 movies. This movie is more complicated in that it took more moving parts to get it completed than the first 2 movies times 10 each. This is the biggest project I've ever done. It's the most expensive project I've ever done. And I can say that it's a movie that will cause you to think. This is not a movie where you're going to hear a lot of things that you've seen before. That's not it. This is going to cause you to look at a picture, a very broad picture that you never would have imagined. And it's nothing that's way out there in left field. It's all right here. So I'm getting the historical information together, and then we're going to post-production. Post-production is essentially sitting down and getting all these segments together, having them flow. And in my mind, out in the field, I had all this. And I knew how I wanted it laid out. And so me being the director on this film, I laid it out for the editors how I wanted them to splice this together. And that's a very interesting dance, because the director will have their opinion and the editor has their opinion and the planning people have their opinion. And so I encountered some pushback on this movie from people I was with. It was huge. Not little, huge. A lot of the people that do post-production work for a lot of different organizations and things. And some of the people were afraid what these other movie producers would think by them being on this project. Yeah. Amazing. They were so concerned, in fact, that they didn't even want their name associated with this film. Not that it wasn't true, but it's what it implied. I'm saddened that I lost a few of those relationships over this. But then again, the truth needs to be out there. We need to know the truth. And if Ben was sitting in this seat, I think he'd toe the line and say, "No, Dad, we got to lay it out what happened. We're not gonna dance around the issue." So, and then when you get to the point of you record, "Hey, Huck, get out of there." You get to the point where you have maybe 15 or 20 different segments in the movie, and they've all been filmed, some indoors, some outdoors. The sound is all different levels. You have to go to a sound expert and you have to level the sound through the movie. Then you have something called colorization, where again, sometimes you're on the run and gun, and maybe you're filming at dusk, and other times you're filming in smoky conditions and foggy conditions, and all of this affects the color of the movie. So it has to go to colorization, so it all looks basically the same. Then you got to get a copyright clearance. And one of the most important things that a lot of people don't understand is the music, the composer. And we're very lucky to get a composer that we had on the first 2 movies. He's very good. And then lastly, when you sit around and you talk about the movie at the beginning and you're kind of touchy-feely and you come up with a budget. And I've been told, but I've never seen it, that some documentaries have a budget over $1 million. That is not mine. But I have been told that the production qualities of my movies are worth what those other people are paying, upwards of $1 million. So I'm humbled by that. Movies are extraordinarily expensive. Unbelievably expensive. And whereas I can sit down and write a book basically by myself without any help, other than somebody to lay it out, somebody to print it, movies are different. You gotta have a team. Everyone's gotta get along. Everyone has to agree. And we all have to be motivated in some way or another to do it. I never like to say that I'm making a movie, because in general, I like to start with a movie and be done with it in 14 months. This is 3 years. And as I've told you, there have been things that happened here that I could have never foreseen. Ben's death, COVID. It's just unforeseeable. And the amount of money that's been sitting out there that I haven't recovered is huge. But that's part of the risk. And the other part of this is that some people make movies specifically to make money. I don't make a movie for that. I make a movie just to tell a story. And the reason being is that I know, because I follow the facts, people don't read books the way they used to. Some still do. My books still sell really well. And I'm humbled that anybody wants to read them. But I know that there's also a segment of the population that likes to watch, whether it's here on YouTube or a documentary. And about 3 years ago, I sat down with the distributor and we discussed these things. And I said, well, why don't we just make a series of 25-minute long shows, and let's make 10 of them, just like a TV series, and we'll roll them out every other week. And I was told no, that we couldn't monetize that. We couldn't put it on Amazon, YouTube, Hulu. They wouldn't buy it. They wouldn't support it. Kind of bummed me out, because I think that telling a story that way keeps people engaged, keeps them thinking, and can cover a lot of ground that way. But unfortunately, never happened, and never will do it. So we've got to be into these hour and a half, 2 hour long documentaries. And again, lots of time, lots of players, lots of involvement from other people. And the last thing, the biggest thing, is you. Without your support, without you being engaged on the topic, without you having an open mind and being a critical thinker, we can never be where we are today. The thousands of emails, comments, questions, opinions that have been brought forward over the last 5 years has been amazing. And it's that free flow of communication, uninhibited, that really has meant a lot to me. And yes, those things that we openly discuss on this channel, in all of those videos, and say the first part of the video when I read the letters, all of those are so valuable. And that's because of you. So I'm grateful, I'm humble, and I thank you for being here for the last 3 years waiting for this to happen. I will tell you this documentary will make you think. It will show you things and connections that I doubt you've ever heard of. It brings in new witnesses that have never been interviewed. and I will take you to places that you have never seen. And really, as a documentary film producer, it's about all I can do for you. But I'll be very interested in what we have to say at conferences and things after you see this. Lastly, November, we're going to have a premiere of the documentary, and it's going to be in Arizona. Haven't finalized the location, but in the next week we will. And it's going to be a fun event. We've already started talking about it and trying to pre-plan for it, but I hope you can be there. We'll be able to have almost 300 people. It's a good facility if we have it at this one place. But in the meantime, keep watching our website, keep watching the videos that I put up, and we'll talk about what's happening in the future with this. And we'll continue to talk about the film as the questions come in. In the meantime, Huck, you're walking around, you're pacing a lot. What's up? Well, come here. Well, come here. Yeah, you're a good girl. So, come here. So Huck says, hey, Dad's picking me up. So Huck says goodbye. I say thanks for being here, and it's kind of the general intro into Missing 411, the UFO Connection, something I never thought I'd be putting up, but it's coming soon. Have a great day. Paulides out.